Welcome back to my YouTube channel, where history meets fortune and the smallest treasures turn into the grandest fortunes. Today, we're diving deep into a story that sounds more like legend than reality. It's the kind of tale passed in hushed tones among coin collectors and whispered about in dusty antique stores. We're talking about the 1973 1-cent coin that shook the world with a jaw-dropping valuation of $202 million. Yes, you heard that right. A single penny, minted in Denver in the year 1973, eventually became the centerpiece of one of the most astounding discoveries in numismatic history. This is not just a tale of rare metal or minting errors. It is a chronicle of mystery, betrayal, rediscovery, and a fortune that was nearly lost to time. But it all begins in the shadow of the Denver Mint during a quiet spring morning in 1973. The air was crisp, workers moved routinely through the halls, and somewhere within the relentless clatter of machinery and the scent of warm copper, a single penny was born that would unknowingly change lives. Among the workers that day was Elmer Rowe, a seasoned engraver who had spent 2 decades of his life around coins. He was meticulous, quiet, and had a peculiar habit of inspecting coins long after his shift ended. Colleagues would joke that Elmer could spot a microflaw from across the room. But what no one knew was that Elmer had been harboring a suspicion. He believed that sometimes, whether by accident or design, a coin escaped into circulation that didn't follow the rules. And he was determined to find one. That morning, as Elmer sipped lukewarm coffee in the break room, a junior worker named Marty stumbled in holding a fresh tray of newly minted cents. They were all clean, uniform, unremarkable. But Elmer's eyes fixed on one of them almost instantly. It wasn't that it looked drastically different. No, it was something about the depth of the Lincoln portrait, the way the rim curved slightly tighter, the glint that seemed to dance a little brighter under the fluorescent lights. He casually approached, nodded to Marty, and asked if he could examine the tray. Marty, barely a month into the job, shrugged and let Elmer pick one. Elmer's fingers hovered, then plucked a specific coin from the lot. That coin would go on to be identified as the legendary 1973 penny with the mysterious dye anomaly and a copper-zinc composition never seen before or since. Elmer didn't know the full extent of its oddities yet, but something inside told him this penny was unlike any other. Elmer didn't pocket it right away. That would be too risky. Instead, he logged it as part of a batch undergoing additional quality inspection, a perk of his position. He kept the coin for months, observing it, testing its weight and density, even writing to metallurgy experts under a pseudonym to gather opinions. But the 70s were a turbulent time, and Elmer's life took a turn when his brother passed away unexpectedly, leaving behind debts and a family in need. In a selfless act, Elmer sold off his coin collection, including the mysterious penny, to a pawn shop in Aurora for just under $50. For decades, the coin disappeared. Some believed it had been melted down. Others swore it was spotted in a small coin auction in Toledo. But no one had proof. That is, until a retired professor named Thomas Averill moved into a cottage in Boulder and found an old, dust-covered coin jar buried beneath the floorboards during renovations. The jar contained pennies dating back to the 1940s. Most were oxidized, dull, and common. But Thomas had been a hobbyist collector in his youth and had a keen eye for detail. One evening, by the fireplace, he began sorting through the jar with a magnifier, just for the nostalgia of it. That's when he saw it. The 1973 penny that didn't quite match the others. It had an unusual luster. The rim was abnormally crisp, and under magnification, the words, "In God We Trust," appeared to have an unusually sharp serif. Curious, Thomas took it to a local appraisal shop. The owner, Carlina Mohn, laughed at first. She'd seen too many hopefuls bringing in common sense. But when she held the coin under her specialized light and measured its composition using a handheld spectrometer, she stopped talking altogether. The coin contained a precise alloy blend not used in standard minting, 87.3% copper, 9.1% zinc, and 3.6% manganese. That alloy was part of an experimental minting plan from the early 70s that had been scrapped due to cost. Carlina immediately contacted the Numismatic Society, and within days, the coin was authenticated and traced back, through a near-miraculous paper trail, to Elmer Rowe's inspection batch. The penny was dubbed the Rowe specimen, and its uniqueness set off a firestorm in the collector's world. Auction houses fought for the right to list it. Private collectors from Dubai, Hong Kong, and Zurich placed early bids north of $80 million. But it was billionaire philanthropist and rare coin aficionado James L. Stratton who secured it for an eye-watering $202 million after an intense bidding war that lasted just under 7 minutes. The sale sent shockwaves through the financial world. News anchors discussed it. Economists analyzed the market implications. Even late-night comedians made jokes about a penny being worth more than a private island. But the story didn't end there. Stratton didn't buy the coin to lock it away. He loaned it to museums across the globe, allowing millions to see what had once been just pocket change. The coin traveled from the Smithsonian to the British Museum, even making a stop in Tokyo during a historical currency exhibit, but its journey wasn't without drama. In 2011, during its transit from Vienna to New York, the transport case went missing for 16 hours. Panic erupted. International authorities were alerted. It turned out to be a miscommunication involving a mislabeled shipping container and a customs hold, but for those hours, the world held its breath. That's how legendary the coin had become. A 16-hour disappearance sparked global concern, not for a bar of gold or a Picasso, but for a single copper penny from 1973. As the years passed, the legend of the Rowe specimen only grew. Young numismatists dreamed of discovering a second one. Treasure hunters scoured old coin jars and family piggy banks. YouTube channels were born just to speculate about its value, its metallurgy, or the remote chance that other experimental coins might still be out there. And through it all, the story of Elmer Rowe came back into the light. In 2021, a biography about Elmer was published, chronicling his quiet life, his fascination with minting perfection, and his unintentional role in creating one of the most valuable coins ever discovered. The book, titled The Penny That Changed Everything, became a bestseller, and a documentary followed shortly after, exploring the full arc, from Denver's minting floor to international fame. Even today, whispers remain. Some believe Elmer made more than one experimental pull that day. That perhaps another coin like the Rowe specimen is hiding in plain sight, buried in the couch of an estate sale home or forgotten in a child's coin album. The mystery remains tantalizing, but whether or not another coin exists, the 1973 1-cent piece that fetched $202 million will forever be a symbol of how even the smallest items, overlooked, discarded, or misjudged, can hold untold value. It teaches us to pay attention, to look closer, and to remember that fortune often hides in the most unlikely places, and that, my friends, is the story of a coin that was never supposed to matter, yet ended up making history. Stay tuned, because the world of rare coins is vast, and who knows what's waiting to be found next. Next, 2009 1-cent USA coin, where ordinary coins transform into stories of unimaginable fortune and hidden history. Today's journey takes us into a world few have ever imagined, a tale steeped in mystery, surprise, and an unexpected turn of events involving a tiny copper coin minted in the city of Denver during one of the most economically turbulent years in recent memory. This is the incredible story of the 2009 1-cent coin that would go on to become one of the most valuable and talked about collectibles in history, ultimately selling for a staggering $121 million. It is a tale that doesn't just belong to collectors or numismatists, it belongs to anyone who ever found a coin on the street and wondered what it might be worth. It all began in early January 2009, a time when the world was still reeling from the effects of the global financial crisis. Factories had slowed production, unemployment was on the rise, and government institutions were tightening budgets. Yet amidst all the cutbacks and caution, the U.S. Mint proceeded with plans to release a series of commemorative 1-cent coins celebrating the bicentennial of Abraham Lincoln's birth. These coins, while still classified as circulating currency, were intended to capture the imagination of the American public and pay tribute to one of the nation's most iconic presidents. The Denver Mint, as always, played a central role in the release. Workers moved with practiced efficiency, machinery whirred with relentless rhythm, and trays of freshly struck cents made their way from the presses to the inspection tables. Each design, birth and early childhood in Kentucky, formative years in Indiana, professional life in Illinois, and presidency in Washington, D.C., was striking in its own right. But one coin, designated for release as part of the third design phase, harbored a mystery that would remain unsolved for more than a decade. The coin itself looked ordinary at a glance. It featured Lincoln standing before the Illinois state capitol, symbolic of his professional life as a lawyer and legislator. The detail was sharp, the finish clean. But as the legend would have it, something extraordinary had happened during the early run of production. On a cold, foggy morning in February, enter Marcus Bell, a technician with over 12 years of experience at the Denver Mint. Known for his punctuality and obsession with precision, Marcus had a unique routine. Each morning, he would conduct a personal inspection of the first 10 coins off the press before officially beginning his day. It wasn't required, but he believed in the importance of catching subtle anomalies before they became full-blown production issues. On this particular morning, he noticed something strange about one of the coins. At first, he thought it was a trick of the light. The coin had a deeper tone, slightly more golden in hue than the typical copper-plated zinc composition. Curious, Marcus slipped the coin into a soft cloth pouch he kept in his coat and continued with his shift. He made a note to check its alloy later but thought little of it in the moment. As the day wore on, more coins came through, none matching the unusual brilliance or weight of the one he had set aside. It wasn't until that night, back home in his modest suburban kitchen, that Marcus began running his own rudimentary tests. Using an old analytical scale and magnet setup, he realized the coin didn't just look different, it was different. It weighed slightly more than the standard 2.5 grams. The reading came in at 2.89 grams. Intrigued, he called in a favor from a friend who worked at a university lab. The composition analysis revealed a shocking result: 95% copper, 3% tin, 2% zinc. It was an alloy composition not used in regular circulation since the early 1960s. Marcus was stunned. How could such an outdated alloy make its way into a 2009 coin? And how had it been struck so cleanly, with no visible indication of error or damage? He went back to work the next day with 100 questions in his head but said nothing to his colleagues. Over the following weeks, he quietly monitored the production lines, occasionally pulling coins for comparison. But none matched the anomaly he had taken home. Eventually, overwhelmed by work and with no proof of what he suspected, Marcus locked the coin away in a fireproof box in his attic and went on with his life. For years, the coin remained hidden. Marcus retired in 2015 and moved to Colorado Springs. He told no one, not even his wife, about the unusual scent that had once captivated him. It wasn't until 2021, during a spring cleaning spree, that the coin surfaced again. While clearing out old boxes in the attic, his grandson, Evan, stumbled upon the fireproof container. Inside were a few retirement documents, an old Denver Mint ID badge, and the coin wrapped in a faded blue cloth. Intrigued by the way it gleamed in the afternoon light, Evan showed it to his grandfather, who instantly recognized it and, with a grin, said, "I always meant to figure you out." Evan, a digital-savvy 21-year-old and casual coin collector, immediately took photos and posted them on several numismatic forums. Within hours, the post had gained traction. Experts asked for close-up images. A few skeptics dismissed it, but others were intrigued. The story caught the attention of Dr. Helena Marsh, a metallurgist and rare coin analyst based in Boston. She reached out personally and asked to examine the coin in person. The family flew out with the coin in a climate-controlled case. Dr. Marsh confirmed the weight and composition, and using advanced imaging technology, she detected microaberrations in the rim, tiny raised ridges not consistent with 2009 minting standards. More intriguing was the presence of an engraving anomaly on the back leg of Lincoln's image, something that had never been documented before. It was as if the die used to mint the coin had briefly slipped or been uniquely altered. When word of the coin's rediscovery hit the broader numismatic community, the buzz was immediate and deafening. The coin was dubbed the Bell specimen, after Marcus, and considered by many to be one of the rarest modern anomalies in American coinage. No duplicates were found, despite thorough searches across collector databases, auction house records, and mint logs. It was truly one of a kind. Offers began to pour in. Private collectors from Switzerland, Qatar, and Japan placed initial valuations at around $30 million. But as experts began to argue that this coin could be the only known cent in circulation with a mid-century alloy in a modern press run, the value skyrocketed. The Smithsonian expressed interest in adding it to its permanent collection, but it was the New York-based Aldrich auction house that finally brokered a deal. The coin sold to an anonymous buyer for $121 million, breaking every record for a U.S. cent and securing its place as one of the most iconic numismatic pieces in the world. The sale became an international sensation. News outlets around the globe covered the story. Documentaries were launched. Podcasts dissected every moment of the coin's journey. A Hollywood studio even optioned the rights to Marcus Bell's life story, envisioning a biopic centered around a humble mint worker whose routine check led to one of the most astounding discoveries of the 21st century. Marcus remained modest through it all. In interviews, he always credited luck over skill, saying, "I didn't find the coin. The coin found me." He donated a significant portion of his share of the sale to educational scholarships and local charities and lived out the rest of his years quietly, his story immortalized not in gold or marble, but in copper, etched onto a coin no larger than a fingernail, yet worth more than most could ever imagine. The legend of the 2009 Bell specimen lives on. Treasure hunters still search for others like it, believing that perhaps somewhere, somehow, another alloy misprint coin from that fateful press run might surface. But to this day, none have been authenticated. It remains a solitary monument to the improbable, a quiet reminder that even during economic downturns, history can be struck in an instant, preserved in metal, and discovered when we least expect it. That's the incredible saga of the 2009 1-cent piece that turned into $121 million. A story of chance, curiosity, and copper that captivated the world.